Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Charmian. Thank you all so much for joining me on yet another YouTube video. If you're new, I hope you stick around, subscribe, turn on your post notifications, and you can always binge watch all my videos. Now let's get into it. So there's a lot that people think they know about sex positivity. There are lots of opinions out there on the internet, and usually people kind of adopt this position that is not really in line with what sex positivity hopes to achieve and wanted to achieve with us in terms of altering our opinions and our thoughts on the idea. So today I decided to make a list of 10 things that make our position and our thought processes about sex more positive and more inclusive. So let's get into it. Okay, number one. What is sex positivity? Sex positivity is a term used to refer to positive attitudes about sex. Now, we know sex has been demonized and criminalized amongst different spheres of people. For example, LGBTQIA plus persons, women, etc., have not always been encouraged to have positive ideas of sex. Sex has always been something that was stolen from women and that women should not have access to. In fact, it was something that was done to them. Sex positivity aims to correct these ideas so we have accurate information about sex and our general position towards sex changes to become better and more beneficial. Number two is a common misconception about sex positivity, and it's the idea that you have to be having sex. No, you can be celibate, you can be abstaining from sex, but still have positive attitude towards sex. There are people who, perhaps because of their faith, for example, certain Christian women who have referenced continuing to have feelings of guilt, displeasure, feeling unclean after having their first sexual experience, even within the confines of their marriage. This is because sex was already tainted and made dirty, and the entire experience was ruined because of this. So, regardless of whether or not you're actively engaging in sex, you still deserve to have positive attitudes, positive affirmations, and general positive thoughts towards sex. The third item is that it's okay to want to have sex. It's okay to have feelings of wanting sex. And in fact, in many cultures, sex was considered a very basic physiological needs. And even Maslow, in his hierarchy of needs, mentioned sex as a very basic physiological need. Most people want sex, most people want to have sex. You're not unique for wanting to have sex or for having sexual feelings and having sexual capacity. And this is speaking primarily towards women and other non-men who have been told that it's unrefined for them to want sex and that sex is something that women who are promiscuous are associated with. Now, the fourth point ties into the last point, and this is that women are allowed to have sex. Women having sex should not be front page news. We should not be having a whole conversation because we've discovered that women are having sex. It should just be like the weather or clouds being in the sky or birds flying and other normal things. Women are having sex every day, perhaps even every second of the day. There's a woman having sex somewhere. So, this is not something that's supposed to make front page news, and this discovery is not supposed to be inflated. And I know, of course, this is another topic, but even when women's nudes, which is a form of sexual assault, are leaked and sex tapes are leaked, there's this kind of shock and outrage that kind of pushes forward the idea that women are doing something, or the women in the photos who are in their sexual capacity and doing what is very natural are foreign, alien, and are doing something that they've invented. We know sex has been happening. If sex wasn't happening, none of us would be here. So this should not be making front page news, and you should not be viewing or passing that kind of content, especially when you have no consent. If you've received consent and your browser's a Pornhub, by all means, but somebody's private information, no, and that's a conversation for another day. The fifth point is that men don't always want sex. Gender has nothing to do with sexual capacity or with someone's interest in sex. And this idea is very dismissive and erases demisexual and asexual men who might have mild to non-existent interest in sex, certainly not in the men at the hypersexual way that our society has kind of made it to seem. Having this idea is very sex positive because we need to understand that even though it's a good thing and it's a beautiful thing, not everyone is interested. And there's no way of prescribing gender norms to people's sexual capacity or their sexual appetite. Which brings us to the sixth point, that is, sex and genitalia are not necessarily mutually inclusive. Genitalia are used by lots of people in the act of sex, but sex is a very broad act that contains or involves multiple body parts, including foreign objects in the mix. And so, again, this is positive to understand this kind of thing. Divesting from the idea of genitalia or penetration as the main act in sex is, of course, important for inclusivity, not just of queer persons, LGBTQIA plus people, etc., but also involving persons with disability who still engage in sex. And this broadens our view and our understanding of sex to understand um, context outside of our own lived experiences. And even without that, many people still don't need genitalia to necessarily be involved in the act of sex. The seventh point is that safe sex is good sex. Being considerate of your well being, checking and asking when people have been tested, being proactive about finding out your status, getting treatment, and also not stigmatizing various STIs that can be, of course, found in sexual relationships is a part of having very good sexual practices, and of course is very sex positive. I think that's very conclusive. There's nothing more to say. Number eight, I've heard a lot of people say consensual versus non-consensual sex. And I know within the BDSM community, there is a term for consent, non-consent, but even that assumes that there's consent in whatever sexual act people are partaking in. Sex can only happen in the presence of consent. So if somebody's in a position where they cannot consent, maybe because of their age, maybe because the situation is unsafe, sex cannot happen there. Regardless of what you think you've heard or what you think has happened, that is still very unethical and that is sexual assault. Sex can only happen in the presence of consent. Without that, you're not having sex, you're raping someone. The ninth point, I think, is one of the most important when it comes to developing positive ideas towards sex. And it's the idea that sex adds to life, it does not take away from it. You cannot be robbed when you've had sex. Tying into the last point, which is that sex can only happen in the presence of consent, it means that there is consensual agreement for this act to happen. And within that moment, whatever happens should be satisfactory. You should not lose or gain anything for that matter from sex. It's just another passive act of life that we go through or might not go through, but that we definitely have active involvement in. Nobody is far more valuable or less valuable simply because of their sexual experiences or lack thereof. Sex is supposed to add to life, to make life's experience much better. It's not supposed to take away from it. And depending on people's beliefs, if you are religious, some people think maybe the experience might be better within the confines of marriage or a certain relationship. That's now a personal thing. Those beliefs are not reality. You are not going to become devalued simply because you had a sexual experience. You're not going to become much more important or much more amazing simply because maybe you're abstaining and other people are not. Sex adds, it does not take away. And to close everything off with the 10th point, sex is not a must. I talked about it in the other points when I was sharing how not all men are interested in sex and asexual and demisexual men. This point is kind of similar to that, but it's just the idea that, you know, sex is not a must. And the last and final point that ties everything up is understanding that sex is not a must. And I understand there are conditions that may suppress people's desire and interest in sex, but there are also multiple millions of people who have no capacity for sex and do not seek to rectify that. That's also a normal position that we should be accepting of and we should be aware of. Nobody needs treatment, nobody needs to take anything unless that is what they wish to, unless they want to tap into that sexual reserve and do things that make them happy in that capacity. There's no need to push remedies on people. There's no need to ask questions. It's okay not to want to have sex. It's okay to not want to have sexual relationships. And you shouldn't feel forced to engage in sexual relationships or use that capacity when you do not have the intrinsic and organic desire to do. That's it from me. I hope you had a great time, and I hope you're enjoying this series of videos that I've been releasing for you guys. Birthday month, birthday pending. If you want to send me money, you know I never say no to that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much. And please, you don't have to stop here. No, you can always watch my videos. Some are in playlists, some are not. 2, 3, 4 more videos won't hurt you. I like to see my views go up. It makes me happy. And get your friends to subscribe to the channel. Get your friends to like, comment, and share my content. Even if they don't watch it, they can still share my link on Twitter, on Facebook, or wherever. And tell me what are the things you think could have made really nice additions to the video. Bye.